So congratulations. I am doing a compendium video reward for Josh Feder, Josh underscore Feder, aka Federade, who bought a Tafo Talk topic off the Big House Compendium. And what he wanted me to talk about was the prospect of a season for competitive melee, like a series of smaller tournaments leading to a progressively bigger one, and in the end, a true champion emerges. This would also allow for an off season, which would give top players a break from constantly traveling. Okay, so here are my thoughts. I've done some similar topics to it before, and I think it's a good idea on paper. The question becomes one of execution and agreements within the TOs. And so I'll talk about. So I'll kind of try to break it down to pieces. I'll say first of all, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think there's a reason why. When you look at sports, you look at other esports like League of Legends or Dota. You have these smaller events that culminate into something large. It's really nice from a narrative standpoint too, because in the NBA or the NFL, you have this buildup of the regular season where you get to kind of see how teams are panning out. It's like their kind of practice test period, and then at the very end, it builds up into something really nice. It's like, okay, this guy will take the whole thing. So the structure is already there. It's really nice for a lot of these different, other things that do like a regular season roll into a playoff. Now, I want to also talk about some of the biggest roadblocks with kind of having that model. And first of all, we're not starting from scratch. So there becomes a really big issue of politics. And so if you really look at the whole year, um, you have events like Big House, Shine, SmashCon, Evo, Genesis, Pound, Gommel, DreamHack, all these events, right, that have been heavily invested into Smash as a grassroots event, and you want them to build up, um, but it's really a big blow to an event to say, hey, your event is a small event that's going to build into another person's event. So how do you come to an agreement which saying, you know what, this event out of all the events is going to be the big one, and everyone else, you're just the road to that event. And and with Evo, every event's looking to be prestigious. They put in a lot of investment of capital in. We saw Shine invest about $20,000 to $30,000 of their own money because they went negative. Genesis went negative in the hopes that they get to be the big event. And when you change the structure so that one event is the big event and everyone else is the road to that big event, not everybody's going to want to agree with that. And you can for sure bet that Evo would not agree to those kind of terms. Evo, if you talk to Mr. Wizard, they want to be the big premier event. If they hear they're just a small event to a larger event, they're probably not going to agree with those terms. So it's unfortunate, if we were to rewrite this from the beginning, then the infrastructure, and we had an infrastructure on year one where we somehow knew for whatever reason that Smash was going to be this big, and we needed to create this year-round infrastructure like what League did with the LCS, and that's perfect. So that becomes a big issue. And Blur has always talked about kind of unifying our resources, but because everybody mostly works full-time jobs, like when can you really get all the TOs to meet together to do something or to talk this out and hash out all the logistics? Because at an event, everybody is doing their own thing. And so even if you said, oh, at Evo, let's designate 2 hours for all the figureheads of Smash to come and talk about this, that's probably not going to happen. Everybody is so busy running logistics somehow and doing their own thing that it's really hard to kind of get everybody on the same page. And that's another issue, is just the fact that because there's so little resources already available, it's hard to gather and create the infrastructure, because creating one event's not that hard. Or like even for Joe guy like Big House, that's his one thing. But if all of them have to get on the same page, or you have to get a group of people on the same page to do this for very little money, it's actually really hard and demanding to do, to organize, because coordinating across 10 events or 12 events in a year, or I don't know, as opposed to one, is a lot harder. And there's definitely a lot more logistics that go into it. But on the flip side, there are advantages to this model. And the reason why I say this is that there is a good trade-off, that if you can put in the resources and make it work, there is greater market value to this. And the reason why I say this is because when you look at Big House or Genesis, and we'll say Genesis, for example, Genesis goes to, I don't know, in whatever peripheral company, a Logitech or I don't know, like a Coca-Cola, and they present a value package to say, please partner with our event. The issue with Genesis is that it's only a 3-day weekend event. It does have high peak viewership, but once that weekend's over, Coca-Cola no longer gets any more value out of Genesis, aside from maybe some YouTube videos that appear in the form of match VODs. So the issue with that is that singular events have little to no value to a sponsor that might consider putting in money. But keep in mind, most people are not willing to put in money to Smash. Period. So there's that issue. But however, if you package it like this and said, we have, I don't know, 12 big events in the year. We're going to carry this Melee circuit all across the year. Your name, Coca-Cola, will be attached to every event. Every piece of content that's created in between that builds up into this giant program, this giant circuit thing. Well, now it's like, as opposed to it just being a one and done deal, now you have this entire like 9 to 10 month season where it's like, yeah, Coca-Cola is the face of this Melee circuit. Oh, that looks really appealing. And so you do get greater market value there. So there's that too. Now, one of the biggest things, that is also, because this would require a lot of money. Because if you're going to create a super event at the very end of the year where like certain players are invited, you have, this big hype thing with a giant prize pot with production values through the roof, that actually requires a ton of money. And that's probably one of the biggest roadblocks. And one thing we don't really mention is the issue of broadcasting rights. And what I mean by that is, I don't know the exact relationship between Evo, Capcom, and ESPN was, but I do know that I think Capcom gave the rights to Evo to sell broadcasting rights to ESPN to say that you can use our production of Street Fighter and put it on the ESPN network while Evo profits off of running that production. That is actually a big source of conflict with games, and this is why games are so hard to monetize. This is why esports are so hard to monetize. It's because of how much control the publisher has. And you see these issues with Riot Games. You see it with League of Legends, where League of Legends, they want to do everything internally. So if you're a company and you say, I want to broadcast League of Legends or run my own event, they'll probably say, yeah, that's fine. But if you say like, oh, I want to make a profit off of broadcasting this by selling it to, I don't know, CBS or TNT, Riot can say, hey, you don't have those rights. You don't have the license to sell broadcasting rights to another medium. I'm only allowing you to stream it, but you can't profit off of it in certain ways. And so likewise with Nintendo, our business model is venue fees and other things, but we can't sell broadcasting rights. And that would be a big source of income for Smash tournaments, is being able to, let's say it was really well done, and we go to ESPN and say, well, we want to put the finals up on ESPN2. It's going to get a lot of viewership. ESPN2 can't offer money for it because we can't take it because we don't have the rights to sell that kind of licensing, and that's a big issue. That's a big roadblock for Smash. It's just the issue of licensing of their IP and their game. And so overall, like, it is a great idea. I would love to see it happen. We've seen an MLG circuit in 2014 where we had points build up, and it was really easy to make a lot of articles for it because we got to see the point counts going into it. We got to see, okay, well, if Westballs gets like 5th at Skatar and just finishes barely ahead of SBAT, then he makes it into the MLG playoff bracket, and that was really cool. It actually built up a lot of good narratives, and it would be nice to have some structure as opposed to saying, well, I just won Evo, but apparently that doesn't matter anymore because SmashCon's coming up in 2 weeks. Oh, wait, SmashCon doesn't really matter if I win because I have Shine in the next 2 weeks. Oh, wait, no one cares about whether I won Shine because Big House is in a month. Oh, I won Big House? Well, now Smash Summit's coming up, and it kind of wears and tears out of, like, the Mangoes and the Armadas and the Hardy Boxes because a lot of these wins don't feel really significant. It's just like, oh, great, I just won a major, but there's another one next week. So I do recognize that as a problem, and I think it's a good idea. It's just that there's a lot of execution that kind of goes into it, and a lot of barriers that make it a lot harder to go about. as opposed to just waking up and saying, "Why don't we just do it?" I mean, I think it would, if it was that easy, I think it would have already been done. So those are my thoughts on the Smash, an idea of like a Smash circuit or a season. I think it's a good idea on paper. Execution a lot more difficult.